I hope it won't come as any shock to anyone, but there are a couple reasons not to like Warhammer 40,000. The universe it's set in lends a whole new dimension to the word bleak, and no matter where you sit in it, you're guaranteed to be one of the people making it worse. It's horribly expensive, which is both awful by itself, and fosters artificial exclusivity in the hobby, so the only nerds that can get into it are the pros and the people who forego every other kind of hobby to finance it. And lest we forget, according to data released by the Department for Bullshit Statistics, by participating in this hobby, I am making myself less attractive to the opposite sex than if I had an actual destructive addiction. The reasons for not liking 40k and not adopting 40k are easy and quick to come to mind. But we're not here for that today. Today, I want to look back at the heady days that got me into this unfortunate situation in the first place. And why do we all stick around rather than selling our models and divorcing from 40k entirely? Come to think of it, Warhammer is a bit like a trophy wife, isn't it? But I digress. It's the way of everything. You spend enough time around anything, and it's not the good that you think about, it's the annoying and the grating. From your car, to your home, to your wife, no. Your girlfriend, no. Your parents, yeah. But you need to think about the good. And since it's the time of year we're supposed to be giving thanks, I'll go through several reasons Warhammer 40k is good. With nothing to do about lore, this shall be universal to the hobby overall. I remember that Yahtzee Croshaw once divided every game into two categories.
Games that make you feel versus games that make you numb.
Stuff that inspires, nurtures creativity, brings out your enthusiasm, and gives your mind something to chew on. Against the shit that's only there to nurture an already bloated bank account and fill a couple hours between the cradle and the grave. And for all its price gouging, universe in turmoil, and shelves upon shelves of unpainted gray plastic, 40k is a game that brings out the creativity. The biggest example you can see for yourself is going to Google for 40k army paint scheme, and you will find literally pages of people showing off their creations. You can change up the prompt slightly into 40k kit bash, and now you've found those blessed psychopaths who weren't content with any official models, so made up their own. With parts from 3 or 4 different boxes, probably from entirely different armies. If you have any appreciation for what it takes to put together one of these little nightmares, you will understand that is not something someone does unless they're invested and possessed by a creative drive that's waking them up at 3 in the morning. I can move away from models but stick with paint. In every one of my videos where I mention a Primarch, we've, for the most part, used fan art of the Rule 63 Primarchs. Firstly, because they're hot and cool at the same time, but this is still fan art and it's great! And it is far from unique. The community is overrun with people trying to show off their artistic prowess while also trying to gaslight you into believing their chosen faction is the coolest. Same thing with fanfiction, a genre I myself just recently and inadvisedly stuck my toe into. Whatever it may be, people love putting their own elements into the 41st millennium. Now, I'm not trying to make the case that 40k is unique or the inventor of fan art or fan fiction. I come from Mass Effect, which may very well be the Mac Daddy of community-made content, with fan art and stories, absolutely none of which I can show on YouTube. But 40k fosters it better, is my point. On the table, you roll some dice and have your little spaceman chop up an alien bug, but you see it happening in your mind's eye and you're possessed to draw it. Your army includes a little generic unnamed commander and you decide, I will give him a name. And while Warhammer 40k isn't a tabletop RPG, it is a distant cousin at the very least. Meaning that while all of this can never be official canon, for all that matters with the amount of retcons this series goes through. No, positive. It can't be Games Workshop recognized canon, but there is enough space in the universe for everything to be semi-canon, or arguably could happen. Another reason to enjoy a series whose main tagline is, "In the grim darkness of the future, there is only war and everyone hates everyone else," is that Warhammer brings people together, because it is a multiplayer game. Now, saying that multiplayer games bring people together would be misleading at best, and gut-bustingly laughable at worst. But in a game of 40k, you are there in person most of the time, and definitely if you're doing it with randos, standing across the table from someone for at least an hour and a half, probably longer. It is a one-day buddy boot camp. Now, I'm going to use a phrase that has fallen out of vogue in the 40k community because it got misused so much, but there are no casual players in Warhammer 40k. This doesn't mean the community is nothing but sweat lords. They're dying out, and I thank God for that every damn day. What it does mean is that in the process from deciding on your army, to buying them, to assembling them, to priming them, to painting them, definitely to painting them, you get invested. From beginning to end, it is impossible not to get connected. You start to feel passion for what you've created. And then you're put across the table from someone else who feels passion for what they've created. Footnote: it doesn't go without saying that passion can breed hostility, and I think that more than anything is what breeds Warhammer's infamous reputation for bad actors / that guy. But if you're a balanced human being, you get out what you put in. But no one plays 40k for an hour after work, goes to bed, forgets about it for a month, and only comes back to it when they're bored and looking for some way to occupy their mind. You can do it in small chunks like that, putting together models or touching up paintwork here and there. However, it is very unlikely it will ever fade from your mind entirely because of the aforementioned investment. And with that, players recognize players. I know it took me an hour or so to assemble my Imperial Knight. I know it must have taken you even longer to assemble that Baneblade, so I can respect that. Last point, and this one is my personal favorite, 40k is a very zen hobby. Maybe not easy or painless, but I'd compare it to one of those simple chores like folding laundry or doing the dishes. You're working with your hands doing something simple, but at the end of the day you can point to something tangible and say, "Hey, I did that, good for me." However, unlike laundry or dishes, this is completely voluntary and marginally less gross. I'll share a recent story from my own life. Since I started this whole YouTube thing, I've been grinding at it pretty viciously. Writing scripts, recording footage so we can make more videos, since that's about the only guaranteed way to grow from a nothing into a something. However, some time ago I gave myself some time off to actually participate in the hobby I'm talking about all the time. And it was while I was assembling an Imperial Knight Valiant, because hell yeah, I'm using that flamethrower the size of a Volkswagen Beetle, while listening to the biography of Mr. Rogers, that it struck me. It was the most relaxed I had been all month. I wouldn't go so far as to say happy, because that sounds so sanctimonious, like I'm going to move out to a farm and start raising plastic figures for the rest of my life. But content would be a good word. One of those wonderful moments where you fool yourself into thinking, yeah, everything really is going to turn out alright. Which might not exactly be worth the hand-over-fist prices this hobby holds up as a barrier for entry, but it's wholesome enough and certainly explains why us plastic addicts would keep coming back. Now, I'm sure even at this moment there are people screaming in blistering rage that I didn't list the reason 40k makes them happy, from the centerpiece display possibility of the Knights, to the bookshelves of lore in the Astartes, to the whatever reason there is people like playing the Imperial Guard. Each army has their own additions to make things more, or less, enjoyable in their own ways. But this was meant to be more broad and simple. Something that can be true for everyone in every corner of the hobby. Maybe, and hopefully be that something to pull someone back in who's having a crisis of faith. Or better still, be that last tiny push to throw a new person into the vortex. Alright, now how do you end a video like this? Enjoy Warhammer 40,000, you nerds!